located in the Chattahoochee Valley. That's in Columbus, Georgia, and Phoenix City, Alabama. And we just want to thank you for joining us tonight. Maybe you've stumbled across our broadcast in the past. This is a chance for families to come together. Maybe this is your first time connecting with us, period, or maybe it's your first time watching this broadcast. We call it Lead Them Well. You can see from the picture on the screen that this is family Bible training, and this is an opportunity for parents to train their children in the Bible, to teach their children their faith. We started this broadcast many months ago as a way of teaching theology to your children. Don't get scared off by that word, parents, children. Don't freak out right now, because the word theology just simply means studying God or the study of God. And so what I'd like to ask you to do as a family is, would you just pause what you're doing and come around the tablet or around the TV right now, however you're watching this stream, because I want to invite you to spend a few moments with us as we open up the Bible. We have been studying through the 10 Commandments. There are a couple of places in the Bible where the 10 Commandments are listed, but the first time that they show up and the most often used passage in the Bible is Exodus chapter 20. Today, we're on Exodus 20, verse 14. In just a second, I'm going to ask you to memorize this verse of the Bible. And when we ask you to memorize a verse of the Bible each week, family, we're asking everybody in the family. This is your little ones. Will they memorize a verse of the Bible? Will your teenagers commit the exact same Bible verse to memory? But parents, because we're asking you to lead your family by example, will you also commit this Bible verse to memory? And then maybe when you're sitting down to dinner sometime each week, you parents will show your children that you're memorizing the same verse of the Bible that they're memorizing. By the way, if you want to do this, you can take a video of your children reciting a Bible verse from memory. We'll give you the notes on how to post that video in a closed Facebook group below this broadcast. And that Facebook group is closed so that you can invite close family or friends that they don't live near you to watch a video of your family memorizing a Bible verse together. But it's closed so that all of those folks out on the internet that would like to get access to your children and do some harm to your children, they can't see this post. If you want to know how to get into that closed Facebook group, the details are right below me in the post notes to this broadcast tonight. As I said, we're making our way through the 10 Commandments. The first few commandments tell us how we're supposed to relate to God. They're about our relationship between people and God. About commandment number 5 all the way to the 10th commandment, these are now how people are supposed to relate to one another. It's about the way that people live with one another, or the way that people live towards one another. And tonight, like last week, we have a very short commandment for you. In fact, just 4 words. Last week's memory verse was 3 words. We're going to take a look at the 7th commandment in just a second, and I'm going to put that commandment on the screen for you. What I'm going to ask you to do is say where this is found in the Bible, repeat these 4 words out loud, and then say where it's found in the Bible one more time just to lock it into your memory. Are you ready? Here we go. The 7th commandment, Exodus 20:14. Do not commit adultery. Exodus 20:14. Now I want you to hear a funny story that I sometimes tell at wedding ceremonies. The story goes like this. There's a farmer, a very wise farmer, a very godly farmer, who is going to see somebody in his village get married. And because he loves his wife, because he loves his son, he takes his wife and his son with him to this wedding ceremony. The son and the wife sit very politely right next to the farmer while the wedding ceremony is going on. And the son is starting to get a little bit anxious, and it looks to the farmer like there's something that's bothering the son. But the son is very good. He pays very good attention during the wedding ceremony. When the farmer is getting in the pickup truck to drive back to his farm, the son is sitting in the back seat of the pickup truck, and the son just can't contain himself anymore. So he asks his father, the farmer, a question. And he says, "Hey, Daddy, when the preacher said at the wedding ceremony, 'Thou shalt not commit agriculture,' what does that mean?" Now notice, the boy misunderstood the word. The preacher was using the seventh commandment, do not commit adultery, or thou shalt not commit. But the boy heard the word agriculture instead of adultery. And because this farmer is a very wise man, because this farmer is a very godly man, he didn't miss a beat when his son asked, what does it mean to not commit agriculture? The daddy looked over his shoulder and he told his son, "Son, committing agriculture is when one man plows in another man's field. Don't ever plow in another man's field." That joke is not really a joke. It's what the Bible is describing for us in Exodus chapter 20, verse 14. Now, each week I typically give lessons for the family to do. And typically I give a lesson for the little children to do. I typically give a lesson for the teenagers in your home to do. And these lessons are just designed to help you remember the Bible verse that we're committing to memory, to think about the Bible verse, and to put that Bible verse into practice. Tonight is going to be a little bit different. I still want you to do an exercise with your children, parents, but this one is not for your children. This exercise is for you. So I've got an exercise that I want you to consider doing with your younglings. That's your elementary age children and below, parents. And then I've got a whole separate exercise that I want you to do with your teenagers after this broadcast is over with. And these exercises are just to explain the importance and the seriousness of Exodus 20, verse 14, the seventh commandment. And so here's what I'd like for you to do after this broadcast is over with. Would you gather your children around, or you can do this right now and just pause the video. But would you gather your young ones around and do something with just your young ones right now, parents? I want you to flip open the Bible. I want you to flip open to one verse in the Bible, and I want you to read Numbers chapter 30, verse 2 to them. Because that verse talks about making a vow to God and how important a vow is to God. And then I want you to describe wedding vows to your younglings. And after you've read this Bible verse, after you've described the vows that a couple makes during a wedding ceremony, a Christian couple makes to each other and they make to God during a wedding ceremony, I want you to talk to your children. I want you to tell your children what it means to make a holy vow at a wedding ceremony. Tell them what this means to God when you make that vow. Tell your younglings what it means to their spouse, what your daughter really means when she makes this vow to her husband, what your son is really saying when he makes this vow to his wife. Would you talk with your children for just a few moments and help them understand the seriousness of making a vow to God? And I believe Numbers chapter 30, verse 2 will help you have that conversation. Would you just pause this video right now? And if you have little children in the home, would you go ahead and do this exercise with them right now? Let's say you have teenagers that are in your home. That exercise would be too easy for them. I mean, it's important and they need to hear your thoughts on making a vow to another person and making a vow to God. But if you have teenagers in the home, parents, you know the teens, you know how much they understand about marriage and about the marriage bed. So I want you to open up the Bible. Would you flip open to Genesis chapter 39 with them, and would you read just a couple of short verses of the story of Joseph, the son of Jacob, the patriarch of Israel? Would you start at verse 7 and read to verse 9? Genesis chapter 39, verses 7 through 9. And then this is what I'd like for you to do. Would you discuss with your teenagers what it really does to the image of God? Would you discuss what it does to other people? Would you talk to them about the damage that adultery does to a family and the damage that adultery does to the glory of God? The reason I asked you to read those specific verses from Genesis is because Joseph, when he responds to this married woman, he says to her, I couldn't do this terrible sin to your husband. I couldn't do this to your family. But he also says, without even missing a breath, I could not commit this terrible sin against God. And I want you to help your teenagers understand all of those friends of theirs who've had their parents divorced because of adultery. Those divorces are always heartbreaking. They're always damaging to a family. But those divorces because of adultery are also damaging to the glory of God. Joseph understood this from the book of Genesis, and I'm asking you parents to help your teenagers understand that. Maybe this will be a thing that they will be able to carry with them when they get married and they make these marriage vows to their spouse. I want to thank you for giving me just a few moments of your time tonight. I hope that the seventh commandment, as tricky as it is to talk about with your children, depending on what age they are, I hope the seventh commandment is something that you as a family will not just memorize, put in your mind, but it's something that everybody in your family will put in their heart and that they will remember to keep their vows to God and to keep their vows to their spouse. I hope you have a great week. Thanks for joining.